Okay, I think we can start. Cool. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope your lunch was good. So welcome to this talk about AI won't take your job, but it will help you do it better. Or at least we hope so. Just a question, how many of you are already using AI tools to do your daily tasks? Okay. So that is just going now. You all set. And I'm just kidding. Okay, so my name is Orel. I'm a senior mobile developer at Viz AI. We use machine learning to analyze medical scans of our client hospitals and try to find if there is anything that we should alert the doctors about. This helps us reduce a lot of time in the hospital between when the patient is entering the hospital and until they get an actual treatment, and thus saving lives, which is a great cause, but I'm not here to talk to you about this. I'm here to talk to you about AI tools in general and how we use them to do our daily programming jobs. So over the past few months, I've been using AI tools, I think, daily, really to do a lot of things that related to our work. And I'm here to talk to you about this in particular. Now, when I submitted my talk a few months ago, I wanted a friend of mine who introduced me to all this AI world to come to give this talk with me. But he didn't want to go. He said that by the time that we're on stage, this field is moving so fast that everything that we have prepared will be already obsolete. He was right, though. I needed to change the presentation, I don't know, dozens of times. This field is moving really fast, and from that time, GPT was updated from version 3 to 3.5, and then to GPT-4, and then they introduced plugins, and this field is ever-changing. GitHub Copilot announces its next generation Copilot X. AWS announced their competitor, Code Whisperer. And Microsoft and Google started their first AI war with Bing Chat and Google Bard. So yes, it is moving really fast. And AI tools becoming much more powerful today. And we've seen them do things that we never thought was possible to be done by machines. There are debates whether or not we already passed blackout. What do you call the machine? The test that you do to AI. I forgot the name. The Turing test. Thank you. But nevertheless, it is much more powerful than it was a year ago, and it does things that we never thought was possible. Also, it's becoming much more accessible. So if I don't know, a year ago, you could use AI only to do some machine learning and to do some very interesting code projects. It is now available to everyone. Everyone can use ChatGPT, for example. Everyone can use Midjourney, for example. It is much more accessible. And while this is very exciting, because we do think that we never thought was possible, it's also a little bit scary for many people, because as AI keep conquering more and more fields, people are starting to think, well, are we building the things that will replace us eventually? Are we helping the AI take over our world? Is this what we're doing now? And it is a very good question, because we do see AI do things that we don't think was possible. You can just enter YouTube, search for ChatGPT write code, and you will see like dozens of videos with people showing you how they use ChatGPT to write their app for them. It does that much better with JavaScript, much less better with Android or iOS, but nevertheless, it does that. It writes their code for them. So there is also a McKinsey report that shows that by 2030, between 15 to 30% of jobs will be displaced by AI. This is a very scary prediction. I hope won't be true, but we should ask ourselves, should we be afraid? So if you've seen the title of my talk, and you probably did because you are here, then you probably know my answer to this question. I don't think we should be afraid. I don't think that it will take over our jobs. But I do think that we need to be prepared. And let's discuss about that. First of all, I think it's a tool, like any other tool. It's not an entity. I know that Hollywood made a thing that AI can literally take over everything, but it's not there, okay, yet. I don't know, maybe it will be there 10 years from now, I hope not, but I don't think that it will get there, but it is a tool that we can use. It's the same analogy as moving from a horse to a car. It's an advancement, it's a new technology, we need to understand how to use it, but I don't think that it will replace us. And at least now, it's really not there. And we're going to see that because we do some live coding later, but it makes mistakes, a lot of them. Like for example, a friend of mine was asking ChatGPT about using an activity result. It gave her this answer, which was a good answer 3 years ago, but it's now deprecated. When she told it that it is deprecated, then it gave the right answer. In Java code, not in Kotlin, but you can also like ask it to do it in Kotlin, and it probably will. But I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes for someone who's smarter than a supercomputer, it acts like a real idiot. So it's not going to replace us anytime soon. But also, there's a more a philosophical claim to that. I don't think that humans are replaceable, well, yet. I don't know what will happen in 10 years from now, so. But there are things that, again, to the analogy that I gave earlier, it's a tool. That means that it needs you. It needs us. We need to tell it what to do. We are using it. We're telling it how to do what it does. It knows very good how to read people's code, and it knows very good how to understand what we tell it to do. But it still needs us to do all of those things. It needs to read our code to understand how to write code. It needs to understand what is a user need, and it will not understand that unless we tell it what is a user need. So it still needs us. It will not replace us. And also, writing apps is much more than just writing code. Not that writing code is a just, but it's much more than that. It's understanding the product. It's understanding the user. It's understanding what the user needs and how the user interacts with our app. So sometimes we think about, well, if the user does that, then what will happen? Things that AI, at least now, just doesn't seem to be able to do. It does not think about how the user will tap 3 times on the same button. It just doesn't think that way. We do, because we understand what human does. AI just not there yet. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to prepare. We need to prepare for that. We need to understand how to use those AI tools, and the image doesn't load. Sorry, the Wi-Fi problems. There's an image here with like a line that goes like the curve. Never mind. We need to understand how to use those AI tools to be prepared, to understand how to operate them. It's the same thing as know how to use a car. So if everyone uses horses and there's a new car in town, let's learn how to use the car. And this is the same thing that we need to learn with AI, how to use it. So our agenda for today will be a little bit about what is AI, just a little bit, I promise. Then how should we program with AI? What tools do we have available? There are always like new tools that coming up like all the time. So this will be things that I've used for the last few months and that I've seen that are actually helping me. And then some live session of an actual coding. So, okay, onward to what is an AI, and this image doesn't load as well. Sorry. Let's try to see. Let's try to refresh, maybe. Not this one. Okay. Cool. All right, so what is an AI? I went to ChatGPT to ask, of course. I asked it, explain to me like in 5 what is AI. So it says AI stands for artificial intelligence. It's like a computer that can think and learn like a human does. It can help us do things like play games. I have no idea how. Talk to us and even make decisions. I really hope it won't. Just like you learn new things every day, AI can also learn and get smarter over time. It's like having a really smart robot friend. That's a nice answer. I wanted to dig deeper. I asked it, can you explain the tech behind it? Gave me this gigantic answer. Like just read like one part of it. One important technique used in AI is machine learning, which is a type of algorithm that can improve its performance on a task by learning from examples. This is a very good explanation of how machine learning works. It gives you an example of having lots of pictures of cats and label them as cat and giving the machine learning algorithm to understand what are the characteristics that make a cat, like pointy ears and furry body. So I went on to ask, how are you operates? What are the things that you, ChatGPT, use? So it says that it's an AI language model, and it went on to explain like how it works. There is a neural network. It's called a transformer. It processes and generates language. Basically, if we just like take all of these fluffy words aside, it tries to understand what's the next word should be. Right? It starts with your words, try to understand like what the next word should be, and this is how it works. There's a lot of tech behind it, but we're not here to cover that. I then went on the funny side and asked it to write a children rhythm about the technology that operates ChatGPT, and as always, it does that. It says, deep in the computer's brain lies a network that's not mundane. It's called GPT, and it's quite grand. The tool that powers ChatGPT's land. I will have the slides later if you want to read the whole song. Cool. So programming with AI. How do we do our actual job with those AI tools? So I'm going to discuss about two tools, ChatGPT, yeah, of course, and GitHub's Copilot. So I use ChatGPT to do namings. You know how namings is like the hardest thing that we do, right? It's harder than writing algorithms. So ChatGPT can do that. It can give us suggestions to branches, to variables that we have in code, to functions. Sometimes when I do code review and I see a function name that just doesn't make sense, I ask ChatGPT to give me better suggestions, and I just write in the PR, ChatGPT gave me those suggestions, maybe we use one of them. So that's one way to use it. It also can convert your Android views and XMLs into composables, which is something that is very good. And sometimes it doesn't really understand very well what you want, so you can show it an example. So sometimes I take like one composable from a project. I show it how I want it to look. I say, well, this is a good example of composable. Please convert into something that looks like this, and it most of the time understands me and does that. Also, APIs to data classes. So if you have an API and you have the request and all the request classes and the response classes, and you have everything in JavaScript, in JSON, you can just give it to ChatGPT and ask it to generate it in Kotlin code, and it does just that, and we will do that in a few minutes. Another tool that I really like called OpenCommit. It's not mine. Some dude on GitHub published that. It's a crazy tool that just reads your code and give you the best commit messages that I've seen. It's really good. I use it a lot. It also helps me with writing PRs, so I discussed about that a little bit before, but I also give it the commit messages that I have, and I tell it, well, these are all the commits. We have a template for our PR, so I'm saying write PR description with this template, what, why, testing, like this, and it just gives me a markdown with all of this generated by ChatGPT, just crazy things. And it can also help you with learning new things. So for example, in our CI, I wanted to write a plugin to GitHub, and it's JavaScript. I'm not so good in JavaScript. So I just asked ChatGPT to help me, and it did. So this will not be some production-ready JavaScript, but if all you need is some plugin for your CI, then it can work. moving on to GitHub's Copilot. So that's an Android Studio plugin. You can just download the plugin and start using it. You have, I think, 3 months for free or something like this. It gives you auto-completions for your code. So as soon as you start writing, it will just suggest to you code that it thinks that will complete what you started. It's also good for using for documentation. So you just write the 2 slashes, and it just generate the comment for you. So we've heard this morning, Chet has talking about the class in the Android SDK that just didn't have any documentation. So if he'd use ChatGPT, this could be, I mean, Copilot, this could be like much simpler for him. And sometimes it suggests me options that I didn't think of. Like sometimes it just gives me edge cases that I didn't think about. Just it gives me a suggestion and say, well, this is good. I didn't think about it. Okay, I'll use it. But also be careful with that, because sometimes it makes mistakes again. So just we need to be aware. Cool. So with that, let's move into some real coding. First, let's see what we're going to build. So, okay, sure. Yeah, why not? Close up on me. Okay, just a minute. This emulator crashed. That's good, because I have some time to drink some water. Basically, what we will see is a chat app that, okay, it loaded up. So I'm using ChatGPT API in here. And I have like a sarcastic friend that I'm sending him messages, and it answers me in sarcastic way. Any suggestion? What do you want to ask it? Anyone? Anything? Whatever comes to mind. How are you doing? Let's go with that. Let's give it a couple seconds to think. Okay. I'm just living the dream. My life is just so exciting and fulfilling. Can't you tell? All right. So this is what we're going to build. Now let's go ahead and delete some classes, so you will be able to see how we use all sorts of AI tools to build them. Cool. All right, let's go. So we have the view model in here. And this view model doesn't have the repository, doesn't have any of the data classes. Let's go ahead. Let's create those. Let's create a package for the model. Okay, cool. Now I want to generate the request and the response. So I do have the request in here. This is the API. This is the request in here. This is the response that I got. I'm going to use this and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to generate it for me. Now, because the Wi-Fi isn't so great, so I just saved it, and I will not be doing this live. Sorry about that. I was preparing to do it live, but it kept did all sorts of crazy things to me, so I just use it like this. But as you can see, I paste in here the curl command. I ask it to generate the Kotlin Linux serialization classes for me and create a retrofit interface. Here are the serializable data classes that you generate. So we have the chat request with the messages. Let's just copy and paste that into our project. So this is called chat request. And this looks good. Okay, cool. I'll just call it message, okay, because that's how I used it in the code. So, okay. So now that we have the request, we will need the response. So I went down here, I paste in the response, and I ask it, I need it to generate the response classes. And it gave me just that. Let's copy that as well. And we call it chat response. Why not? Okay. All right. Now let's look at this. So first of all, it generated also another message object. I don't need that. We already have that in the request, so I just go ahead and delete that. We're going to use the message that we already have. Another thing that it make wrong is that it uses the object keyword, which we can't use. So I'll just go ahead and fix it like this. And now that we have the request and the response, what we need to have now is the retrofit interface, which was generated in here. Let's just go ahead, copy and paste that. What was the name? OpenAI API service, okay. Good. Let's have all the imports set up. And what happened to the chat response? Oh, I think it's not the name. Yeah, it's chat completion response. Okay. Did I not copy it? Is my IDE went crazy? I believe it does. Sorry. Yeah, that's the problem with live coding. I was thinking about whether or not I should do a live coding, but I guess, I don't know. You tell me later if that was worth it. Okay, cool. So now that we have the service, we have the request, we have the response, let's go ahead and create a repository for us. I'm going to do that using the IDE and the GitHub Copilot's plugin, because I have it already in here set up. You see this little GitHub icon? So that's the GitHub Copilot. So now we need the chat repository. Did I write it wrong? Yes, of course I did. So chat repository. Yeah, that looks okay. All right, let's create an interface for that. And Copilot just gives me a suggestion. If I tap tab, then it will write it down in the IDE. But I actually don't want to receive just one message. I want a list of messages. Okay. Now it's good. And now let's create the concrete class. Let's wait for it to generate. You see how it thinks? You see this little icon in here? So usually it will give you a suggestion much faster if your internet connection is more stable. Let's try again. Give it a little time to think. No, no, no. Why not? Maybe I should use my hotspot. Come on. Work, they're all waiting. Okay. All right. Will it work now? Let's see. Not so much. Not so much. Okay. All right. We will have to do it ourselves. Let's hope that it will wake up. No? No? Okay. So OpenAI service. Repository. Something, please. It just doesn't want to work. Should have done that with a video or something. Okay. Would you believe me if I'll tell you that that usually it works? It just gives you the good suggestions. Sometimes not, but usually it does. Okay, so we do need, all right, so we need a request. Let's create a request real fast. Okay, cool. This one worked. So we have a request. We will need to change the model later, and we will return, yes, will you? Will you? No? Okay, let's do it ourselves, like the old way. Okay, so going to use, okay, this was good. Good for you. You say you can do it. Just have a little more faith in yourself. Okay, Yes. All right. He's coming back. He's coming back, guys. Cool. Let's just change. It's not a DaVinci model. It's the GPT 3.5 Turbo model. So we will change that. And let's go back to our view model and see that everything looks fine. Well, not everything. Why? It's not the same name. Okay, it's not. Okay. So now it seems that everything is good. Right. Great. So we've seen how it generates the request for us with all the classes that we needed, and we don't need to do that ourselves. We can just let ChatGPT do exactly that. I believe the next evolution will be that someone will create a plugin for us that just does that automatically from our IDE, that we don't need to go back and forth. Just an idea. Throwing ideas into the world. All right, let's move on to do some views. So if I go to the message row, you see that I have the bubble text view in here, a spacer, and an avatar view. Let's go ahead and create this avatar view. Why not? Everything went smoothly until now. So, okay, so we will need a composable. Yes, okay. What happened now? Okay, that's good. Made in tab. All right, cool. For the size, we don't use int. We use dp. Cool. Now to create the actual avatar view. So beforehand, I went to ask ChatGPT. Okay. Okay. I asked ChatGPT to create an avatar view for me. It gave me that answer, which works, but it's not the best answer because we don't really need a box and an image inside of it. We can just use a modifier. Luckily for us, just on Monday, I discovered a new tool that's called Behind, probably? I don't know. I ask it, and it's some kind of search tool, but just for programming. Used it a couple of times. You see how I told you? Like I changed my presentation. This was from this Monday. And it actually gave me a much better answer. So this is a much better answer. Just let me copy that in here. But we're going to see, wait, let's do all the imports, because why not? And in here, so we pass in a size. Let's use the size that we're passing. More imports. Some more imports. Some more imports. Yeah. Eventually we will, okay. Cool. And now I want to use a different icon depending on of whether it's the user or the ChatGPT bot. So I went and asked it the same question. I asked, okay, if I want to use like different icons. Gave me a good answer for the icon part, but not so good answer for the image part. It now forgot everything about the modifier that it gave me before. So you see how I said it before, it still needs you. Okay, okay, so let's go ahead. Let's just copy and paste that. I will not use an image resource. I will use just an icon. So is user. So if it's a user, let's go ahead and use icons default person. Okay, that's good. And if it's a bot, let's use icons default face. And in here, it's not a painter. I'm not using a painter. I'm using an image vector, which is the icon. Cool. Now I want to see whether or not it's working. We're going to need a preview for that, right? Let's go ahead and create that preview. Thank you. Thank you. This is only for the user. Let's go ahead and create another one for the bot. Thank you. So it did understand that if the first one was is user true, then the second one will probably be is user false. It's a very nice observation, and it did just that. Let's build and refresh and see if that works. Cross your fingers. Of course not. Probably the naming. Naming? Was it the naming? Yeah, it's the naming. Let's go back. Cool. So it shows me two previews, one with the user icon and one with the bot icon. Just one more example of how generating the preview can help us is with the messages list. So you know how if we have a list, we want to see the whole list with like different items in it. So if we want to go ahead and do that, we need to create like a dummy list, right, with all of the things configured. Let's just ask it to do that for us, okay? Shall we? Let's go ahead and ask it to do that for us. Let's wait a couple of seconds. Cool, great. So it just gave me a list of chat messages, as you can see in here. I didn't do anything. It just Copilot did all that for us. And you can see in here in the preview. So there's hello, hi, how are you? I'm fine. All of that generated by GitHub Copilot. Now that we have everything that we need, let's try to run it and see how it fails, how it works. Will it? Okay, cool. Anything that you want to ask it? Go ahead, don't be shy. Just to say I'm not your friend? Sure, why not? I'm not. Let's see what it gives us. Invalid request error. Cool. You didn't provide an API key. We did. Or not. What happens here? Oh, I know why. My mistake, sorry. Let's go back to the repository. So in here, we need to have this, okay. All right, let's try again. I'm not your friend. But be a friend, please. Okay, cool. All right, here it gives us the answer. You like it, huh? Just download the code and play with it yourself, but with a different API key, so it will not finish all my tokens. Cool. All right, so we've seen. How was the live coding, by the way? Be honest. Was it worth it? Cool. So wrapping up. How long do we have? Cool. Cool. Just the time. So wrapping up, we've seen how AI can be valuable. We've seen how we can use it to our purposes. We also seen that it's not there yet in terms of creating apps by itself. But we need to be prepared because it can do things that we didn't think possible. And it's a matter of time until it will get better. And we need to use these tools and be familiar with them and use them wisely, because we need to tell them what to do. We need to correct them. We need to fix them, and then it will work for us. If you have any other questions aside from what you will want to ask now, we do have office hours tomorrow about this specific topic, so please come, join us. It will be fun. You can always follow me on Twitter, Orel Zion Dev, LinkedIn, don't know why, GitHub if you want. Thank you for listening, and this will be your time to ask any questions.